Hello and welcome to Heart Soul Mind Strengths Media. My name is Chelsea and with me I have Jasmine and Charlotte. Jasmine is the voice behind Joy Knowledge podcast, which is her audio journal. She's a PhD student and she loves sharing short stories about Jesus in her daily life. The Joy Knowledge podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And Charlotte is the voice in Voice Arisen, which is a musical response to a season of anxiety. She's a songwriting assistant mentor at Awaken Generation, and she's a storyteller, and she hopes that her stories will bring encouragement. Voice Arisen is also on Spotify and Instagram. Okay, so guys, today we're going to have a heart-to-heart conversation, and the question of the day is, how do you know God is real? But before getting into that, I just want to ask us, how did you guys grow up? Did you grow up Christian or in another religion? Like, what was your religious background? Yeah.
I did grow up going to church. I used to go to church with my mom ever since I could remember, but there were blocks of years in between that we didn't attend. I would say I didn't truly know God in a personal way. Yeah, I knew that He existed. I never had any doubt about that. But I think I only came to know God for myself when I started attending church on my own accord. Yeah, on my own accord.
Like you started attending church whenever you just wanted to?
I think at first it started with wanting to go for friends. That was when I was younger. But then after that ended also. And then for a long time, I just lived without church. Yeah. Then my friend invited me and I was like, I accepted the invitation for myself. Yeah, not because I needed friends or anything. Yeah.
Jasmine?
I grew up in a mixed family in terms of religion. So my dad was one religion, my mom was Christian, and they eventually parted ways when I was a kid. So, I also, similar to Charlotte, I always felt like people existed because of a God. Like there has to be something that created me, my parents, like we didn't just evolve. That's how I always felt intuitively. But I went to church with my mom, not because I really had an emotional experience with God or because I really deep down, believed that Christianity was the only way, but I went because I enjoyed the community and I felt really enriched by the relationships that we made in church. So after my parents split, it was just my mom and I, and even though we were a single parent family, we were not stigmatized for it, and I think that's why we really enjoyed the church that we were going to. I'm from LA, by the way. So shout out to my home church in LA. So no one really stigmatized us. So I enjoyed going. I enjoyed the friends. But I remember the one part about church I really didn't like was the worship, because I just didn't understand why people loved to sing to this God and had so much love for Him. And I just, again, I was quite emotionally disconnected from this God. And yes, I understood that Jesus came to die on a cross for me, but I also didn't understand why that was such a big deal, to be honest. And when I was 11, my mom brought me to a Christian conference, and during the lunch break hour, the pastor actually asked all the teens or the preteens to stay back. And I was like, no, I don't want to stay. But anyways, mom forced me to. So I stayed. And these two girls from the church, they came and just prayed for me. I didn't know them at all. And, I was like this awkward preteen going like, okay, I don't know what to do when people are praying for me. But I just stood there, and something happened when they prayed, because I don't even remember what they said, but it was like that indifference that I'd always felt towards God, that like, oh, I don't understand His love. I don't know why people are always singing about His love. It just like was removed, and I broke down and I really cried, because it felt like in the spirit world, like someone was giving me a hug, someone was just showing me unconditional love and acceptance. And so, yeah, ever since that point in time, I've been on this journey of really knowing that, wow, the heart of God is such that he really loves us with no strings attached. And I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, but I can't fully yet.
How old were you then?
I was 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All that when you were 11?
Yeah. It was a very emotional. So ever since that time, I didn't fall in love with worship right away, but actually it's so crazy. That same year, I got invited to be part of the church worship team. And then I became the lead musician. I mean, it's very crazy. That same year where I went from like not liking worship at all to sort of being super involved. And we could talk about this later, but I think worship has played a really big part in my journey. Yeah.
Actually, Charlotte, how old were you when you decided that you wanted to go to church on your own?
It was 2013, so I was 21.
Wow.
Significant year.
Wow.
Yeah.
11, 21.
Yeah, the birth of my adulthood.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, so my friend actually invited me to a cell group earlier in 2013. But the first time I attended a main service was actually my birthday itself. So that was a very interesting.
Wow. Right on your 21st.
It's really coincidental, but I feel like it's like little things like that God kind of like has a teehee moment or like, yeah, you know, I know this means something to you, and like these things kind of fall into place. Yeah, so it was it was funny and cute, but like it really spoke to me because like that's the day I turned 21 was the day that like I stepped into the church sanctuary at my own decision for the first time.
I did not grow up Christian. I grew up Taoist. But my parents registered my sister and I in a Catholic school.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up for 10 years in a Catholic school. And then in my final year in the Catholic school, which is Sec 4, which when I was like 15, 16, I was invited to church. So I kind of knew there was a God because, you know, they go through morning prayer before school, and then sometimes I think once a month we will have Catholic mass, and then I'll see all my friends who are Catholics like eat the thing,
communion.
Yeah, communion. I mean, at the time it was like, oh, it's just a circle piece of thing. Is that paper or what is it? Like, I can't see. Yeah, then they will always do the cross sign. I'm like, okay, so that's, you know, their religion. And, you know, my family's religion is we have a Buddha at home, and then we just kneel in front of it and just like say whatever we want, you know. But my first real encounter with God was when I was 15 going on 16. I think much like you guys, I was musically inclined also in some way. I was in a school choir. Yeah, so I had a secondary school junior who invited me to church. Yeah, so I think when I first went to church, it felt very cold and foreign. But somehow there was this sense of safety. I think I felt very safe in that environment or community. And then I think from that moment on, I just felt like it's a good place to be in. And I want to be in this space because, you know, I need friends. And then I feel safe. I think that's the general gist of it. Yeah, so knowing God as like a myth to then knowing him in the feelings of safety and assurance, I think helped me to know that, yeah, this is a different God than what my parents worship, or like then compared to what I grew up 10 years witnessing my friends believing in. I know that God is real because of that sense of assurance, that sense of peace, that whenever I am in his presence, that feeling just comes to me. And I think even now, how I know God is with me is actually through these three things. And the first one is, it's not a sermon. It's just the three things that I know that God is real in my life. I will feel that my heart will pump really fast. And I know that he's speaking to me. And the second one is if I feel like crying. Yeah. And the third one is that overwhelming sense of peace. that really, like in the Bible, there's this verse, I think in Philippians 4:7, that the peace of God which surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Yeah, and I think it's that inexplicable peace that helps me to know that I am with Him, He is with me, and that I am safe also. And I think that's how I know that God is real.
It's interesting that you said that you feel your heart pounds really fast, because I was just thinking about that verse that talks about how Jesus stands at the door of our hearts and He like knocks, right? And I thought about how when a heart pounds, it sounds like knocking. And actually every moment in which we're alive and we're breathing and our hearts are beating, it's like God is knocking at the door of our hearts. And I felt the same thing, like after I had those two girls pray for me, and same thing, like felt like crying. It was an overwhelming sense of joy and peace and love. Like those three things just go so hand in hand. And that excitement that I'm being called to something more. Yeah.
I think I've encountered so much with God in my life. I've encountered a lot of His miracles. I've encountered like when God speaks to me, and I think like this heart pounding thing, I know, like, you know, in church we also talk about, you know, God doesn't always show Himself in signs, and these are not things that we need to look out for. But I guess to me that's also a grace of God to say that like I am speaking to you, like even like there are moments where you're not sure, like these signs are ways that you know that God really speaks to you. I think one of the moments that I really experienced that was ironically like when I first decided to go to church. Yeah, my friend actually sent me this song from Hillsong, which many people will probably know. It's called Oceans, and I latched onto it. Yeah, I'm the kind of person that if I really like a song, I will play it or repeat for like days and days and days, and like I will only listen to the one song. And this song blew my mind at the time, because before that I never heard contemporary Christian music before, and I always thought that Christian music was like hymns, or like maybe like the older, like Above All, you know, that kind. When I heard it, I was like, oh, this is so totally my vibe, you know, like the kind of songs that I was listening to at the time. Then there was one night, it's the same week, you know, it's just probably even like the next couple of days, I was just lying in my bed and I was listening to this song. And then when the bridge hit, and it was Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders, and I felt like God suddenly speak to me. And just to give a bit of context, in that season, I just started working. It was my first job. And a lot of my friends had kind of been working for about a year already. And my closer friends were like not in the country as well. So I felt like I had lost a lot of my a lot of community that I knew on a daily basis already. And then, maybe just I felt like, I didn't have words for it at the time, but I felt hollow also with my life. Yeah, and so when that bridge happened, I just felt like God really suddenly spoke to me. I felt like God was calling me out into the deep. And I had that phrase, you know, before I even understand like the definition of into the deep. Yeah, and I felt like God was telling me that He had a purpose for my life, and He was really calling me into faith and to trust Him. Yeah, and to walk on water like Peter did. Yeah, and so like even before I knew that there is a culture of raising your hands in worship in church, I actually raised my hands in response to God. Yeah, but like in my head, like that was just that moment, right? I didn't have like a future plan or anything like that. And then my friend in the same week invited me to church for cell, and I was like, yeah, okay. And my friend was like shocked because she'd been inviting me for years, and it was the first time I was like, I didn't have to be persuaded. Yeah, I just like, yeah. So God really moved, you know.
I hate to cut you off, but I actually remember meeting you back in 2013 for the first time. It's so funny. I'm just remembering what you looked like back then and even now. I mean, you still look like yourself. Yeah. But I actually see a transformation, because I remember meeting you at that time and I felt like you are so much more radiant now, so much more glorious. Like there's like a lightness about you now, whereas opposed to the first time I saw you, I felt like there were things still really weighing you down, but I can feel that difference.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because coincidentally, the first time I attended a main service in my church was on my birthday itself. Yeah, and I just turned 21, right? And then at that time, I only attended church once a month, like main service once a month. I think on my second or my third time there, I think my third time, I was sitting next to my current co-cell leader actually. Yeah, and then next to him was my friend that invited me to church. And after the altar call, at this point I knew that my co-leader is very prophetic. Yeah, and he hears from God. And I was very open to the prophetic already at the time. And after the altar call, this guy kept staring at me. And then he whispered something to my friend. And then my friend started staring at me. And we know this friend, so we know what it looks like when she stares at me. But so when we left the church, she just very thoughtful and very quiet. And I asked, do you have something to say to me? And then she said, how you know? I was like, was it this guy, did he get a word from God or something for me? And then she was like, yeah. She said he felt that God made him feel I think 7% of what you feel in your heart. Yeah, and he said it made him so uncomfortable and he felt so much discomfort and he didn't understand how I was able to live like that. Yeah, and it was actually him releasing that word, that God really wanted to do something to lift that. And through the next year, and I guess the many years since then, and still now, God has really been doing that work.
Wow.
Yeah, there's this Kanye West meme. Do you know this Kanye West?
No, I think.
There's a Kanye West, there was a season when Kanye West was doing Christian music. Yeah, and that time we were, okay, anyway, I was on board with it but opinions aside, there's this meme of him frowning and then this photo of him smiling and this is Kanye before Christ and Kanye after Christ. My friend and I always joke that's me.
You need to see it.
I say it on my desk. I have to go and find it, see if I can find it. It's somewhere, but it's so funny because
I'll put it in somewhere.
It's so legit, that's literally me before knowing God. Yeah, there was a moment how I knew God was so real. Of course I knew God was real by this point, but this was a healing miracle that I received. It was so real. I always lose my voice at church camp. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why, but the rate that I lose it is very strange because it's right after the first night. I lose my voice already. And I know I'm not screaming on the first night, but I'm just singing, yeah. But I know I'm allowed to sing also. But it shouldn't be to the extent where I fully lose my voice and I'm serving. So I still have to sing with this lost voice, There was one camp that got really moved for me. There were a lot of prep before the camp, for myself spiritually also. But I lost my voice, and then this particular session, I was gonna serve, and we were praying as a team before that, and we were actually really worshiping and praying before our session, and I felt I would say now is the glory of God. By the time I just felt it was the weight and the presence of God, but it was the weight, of God. And I was double while I was crying. I had such a deep conviction about the need for God in our lives, and when we went back on stage so before that we had done rehearsal and I had no voice, and when we went back on stage to sing, my voice came back immediately and my range was different. I sang differently. Yeah, I never experienced anything like that before.
So in a way, your voice...
My voice arose.
I'm so sorry.
You were waiting for me to finish.
I'm so waiting.
It's so true though, but in more ways than one, God has has lifted my voice. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.